The sky above the battlefield was a bruised mixture of purple and gray, streaked with smoke from fires that still burned in the distant ruins. The human soldiers moved carefully over the broken ground, their boots sinking into the soft ash left behind by fallen machines and scorched earth. Commander Elias Vorn led the group, his eyes scanning every shadow for signs of danger. Even after years of war, he had learned never to underestimate the quiet, waiting threats that lingered after battle. They had fought alongside the Xylar for the past week, and the alliance was uneasy. The Xylar were a proud warrior race, their strength legendary across human colonies. They were disciplined, strategic, and unyielding, with a culture built around honor and legacy. Every Xylar warrior carried sacred armor, polished and maintained as a symbol of their clan's history. To touch it without permission was the deepest insult, and to carelessly damage it could provoke a duel or worse. Humans, on the other hand, were considered brash, reckless, and sometimes disrespectful. Elias knew the smallest mistake could undo the fragile trust they had built. After the morning skirmish, the battlefield fell into an uneasy silence. Smoke curled from the remains of destroyed AI war machines, and broken weapons littered the ground. Elias had helped his soldiers secure the perimeter, but something caught his attention from the corner of his eye. Xyla Thra, a young Xylar warrior, knelt beside her armor, her hands struggling to clean it. The battle had left her breastplate scorched, and her gauntlets smeared with dirt and blood. She moved with grace, but the care she took was frantic, almost desperate. Elias walked closer, careful not to startle her. He had observed her during the fight, how she moved like wind, striking with precision, but always with honor. Now, watching her hands tremble as she tried to polish her armor, Elias realized how much this sacred gear meant to her. It was not just protection. It was history, legacy, and pride wrapped in metal. A thought crossed his mind. What if he offered to help? Humans rarely acted this way, and he knew she might misinterpret his gesture. Still, respect demanded action. "Let me," he said softly, kneeling beside her. He gestured toward the armor, not touching it yet. Xyla Thra froze, her eyes widening, the movement of her fingers halting mid-polish. Every warrior in her culture knew that no outsider could touch the armor without permission, and even then, it was an act laden with meaning. For her, this could be the highest insult or the deepest honor. She looked at him for a long moment, her dark eyes measuring his intentions. Elias met her gaze steadily, showing no hint of mockery or impatience. He picked up a clean cloth, careful to move with slow, deliberate motions. Then, ever so gently, he touched the edge of the breastplate. The metal was warm from the sun and battle, but he handled it as though it were the most fragile object in the universe. Xyla Thra's breath caught in her throat. She whispered, almost to herself, "Do you know what that means?" Her voice trembled, low and reverent. In Xylar culture, these words were reserved for moments of profound realization rarely spoken, even among their own kind. Elias had no idea of the full weight of the phrase, but he understood its importance from the pause it caused, from the way the other Xylar warriors nearby stiffened as if time itself had slowed. He nodded slightly, showing that he understood respect and honor, even if he did not yet grasp the full tradition behind it. Then he began to clean the armor, working methodically, wiping away the dirt and burn marks. He moved slowly, carefully, noticing the intricate patterns etched into the metal, each symbol representing a story, a victory, a loss. For Elias, this was more than an act of kindness. It was a gesture that bridged worlds. The Xylar watched in silence. Some shifted their weight uneasily, expecting confrontation. Humans were unpredictable, and few had ever shown such care. Others observed with curiosity, their heads tilting slightly as if to study Elias's strange behavior. Xyla Thra remained still, her hands hovering near her gauntlets but refusing to intervene. She had been taught since birth to guard her armor, to protect it at all costs. Yet something about the way Elias handled it, the calm, the respect, the patience, was breaking a barrier she had never thought could be breached. Minutes passed, and Elias continued his work. When he finally set the cloth aside, the armor gleamed in the fading light, shining with a luster that seemed almost alive. He stepped back, bowing his head slightly, a silent acknowledgement of its importance. Xylothra finally moved, kneeling beside him. She touched the breastplate lightly, as if verifying that it was intact, then raised her eyes to his. "You understand," she said softly, her voice steady now. Elias nodded. The words were not needed. The understanding was mutual. In that moment, a bond formed not just between two warriors, but between two species. Respect, trust, and courage had taken root where suspicion had once grown. The other Xylar warriors began to step forward, curiosity replacing caution. Some offered subtle nods, a rare gesture of approval among their kind. It was as if Elias's single act had opened a door that had been closed for centuries. The humans nearby watched, uncertain at first, then with growing admiration. They realized that Elias had done something extraordinary, not with weapons or firepower, but with honor. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, Elias and Xylothra walked along the edge of the battlefield. The ruins stretched before them, a testament to the destructive power of war, but also to the resilience of life. "You risked much," Xylothra said, her voice quiet, almost contemplative. Many humans would not have understood. They would have laughed, or worse, broken it. Elias shrugged, a faint smile on his face. "I don't understand all of your ways, but I understand respect. I know the difference between a tool and a symbol." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Perhaps humans are not as simple as I believed." There was a trace of amusement in her tone, but also something deeper: recognition. Elias had proven that humans could act with wisdom and honor, qualities her people revered above all else. As night fell, the sounds of the battlefield quieted. Fires smoldered in the distance, and the sky was dotted with stars that reflected off the polished armor she still carried. Elias and Xylothra returned to the camp, their steps measured but unhurried. Other Xylar warriors gave them space, acknowledging the moment without words. Humans looked on, realizing that war could teach lessons far beyond combat. Lessons of empathy, understanding, and the strength that comes from respecting others. The rogue AI forces were not yet defeated. Tomorrow would bring another challenge, and the fragile alliance would be tested again. But for now, in the quiet of the night, something remarkable had happened. A human had honored an alien tradition in a way that no one had expected. A young alien warrior had begun to see humans differently, and the spark of mutual trust had been lit, small but enduring, ready to grow when tested by fire. Elias knew this was only the beginning. Battles would come, strategies would be tested, and sacrifices would be demanded. But he also knew that small acts, simple gestures of care and respect, could shape the course of history as much as weapons ever could. He glanced at Xylothra, who walked beside him with her sacred armor gleaming in the dim starlight. She no longer seemed distant or untouchable. She seemed human enough to trust, and yet alien enough to inspire awe. As they reached the edge of the camp, the two of them paused. The human soldiers were tending to the wounded, the Xylar warriors preparing for the night watch. But Elias and Xylothra simply stood together. No words were necessary. The bond had been formed. The understanding had been achieved. And in the quiet of that war-torn world, hope fragile, but real, began to grow. The night was far from over, and the war was far from won. But for the first time, The humans and Xylars faced the coming days not as strangers forced together by circumstance, but as allies bound by respect and trust. And in the silent acknowledgement of that truth, both Elias and Xylothra understood that what had begun with a simple act, cleaning sacred armor, had changed everything. Dawn broke over the ruined city, a pale light spilling through clouds of smoke and dust. The battlefield that had seemed quiet the night before was now alive with movement. The rogue AI war machines, scattered but far from defeated, were regrouping, their metal bodies glinting under the rising sun. Humans and Xylars readied themselves for the new day, their weapons checked, strategies reviewed, and minds focused. Commander Elias Vorn stood beside Xylothra, watching the horizon. The bond they had formed, the previous evening, the trust born from a simple gesture of care for her sacred armor, was not just personal. It had started to ripple through the ranks. Human soldiers who had been wary of their alien allies now glanced at them with new respect. The Xylars, once suspicious of human capabilities, now moved with a cautious admiration. Xylothra adjusted her armor, the polished plates catching the light. She had not said much since the night before, but her presence spoke volumes. Humans rarely understood the depth of Xylar culture, yet Elias had. That understanding gave her hope, and it gave her confidence that the humans could fight alongside them as equals. "Commander," she said, her voice low but steady, "the AI units have formed a wedge formation. They plan to split our forces and isolate the humans." Elias nodded, studying the enemy lines. He had learned a lot from observing the Xylars during battle, their movements, their focus, the precision of their strikes. He could predict some of their responses, but he also had to think differently. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and willing to take risks that Xylars would avoid. He looked at Xylothra. "We'll need to combine our approaches. You'll take the center. I'll flank with the humans. We can disrupt their formation before they reach us." She studied him for a moment, her dark eyes narrowing. "A risky plan. But humans have surprised us before. I trust you." The battle began in a controlled chaos of fire, smoke, and metal clashing against metal. Xylothra moved through the battlefield with unmatched grace, her sacred armor gleaming as she struck down rogue AI units with precision. Elias led the human soldiers along the flanks, using terrain to their advantage. Where the Xylars were disciplined and strategic, the humans were flexible and inventive. Together, they created a combination the AI could not anticipate. Elias noticed a pattern in the AI's movements. Their programming was precise, but predictable. He signaled to the human squad to create decoy attacks, drawing the enemy into traps set by the Xylars. Explosions shook the ground, sparks flew from clashing metal, and smoke choked the battlefield. But through it all, the humans and Xylars moved in synchronization. It was not perfect, but it was enough. At a critical moment, Elias saw an opportunity. The AI commander unit, larger and more heavily armored than the others, was exposing a weak spot while focusing on the Xylar warriors. Without hesitation, he dashed forward, drawing a group of AI units with him, and executed a series of rapid maneuvers that disrupted the enemy formation. Xylothra noticed immediately and adjusted her approach, coordinating with him in ways neither had planned before. The other Xylar warriors began to recognize Elias's tactics. They had always respected strength and courage, but this was something different. Human ingenuity, combined with a willingness to act decisively, was earning their admiration. Some whispered among themselves, watching closely. Humans were no longer merely allies, they were becoming warriors worthy of recognition. After a long and exhausting fight, the rogue AI units were finally defeated. Smoke rose from the wreckage, and the surviving machines were dismantled by the humans and Xylars. The battlefield, once chaotic and dangerous, was now eerily silent. Soldiers on both sides checked on each other, tending to wounds, and sharing water. Elias and Xylothra walked slowly through the aftermath, their eyes scanning for any remaining threats. "You fought well," she said, breaking the silence. "Humans are different from what I expected, not only in courage, but in understanding. You think, and you act with purpose." Elias smiled, though he was exhausted. "I learned from you. From all of you. Strategy, discipline, honor, things we humans can respect and follow. And sometimes, simple acts matter more than swords." Xylothra paused, touching her armor gently. "Do you know what this means now?" Her words echoed the phrase she had whispered the day before. This time, it carried even more weight. It was not just about respect, it was acknowledgement, acceptance, and a recognition of shared values between two very different species. "I think I do," Elias replied. "It means trust. It means understanding. It means that even in war, we can honor each other's ways." The Xylar warriors observed quietly. Some approached and offered subtle nods, gestures that signified respect in their culture. Elias returned each nod, understanding their language without words. The human soldiers, seeing this, felt a new pride not just in their own abilities, but in what humanity could achieve when combined with respect and understanding. Later, Xylothra called Elias to a quieter spot on a hill overlooking the battlefield. She held a ceremonial token in her hand, a small but significant item from her clan. "This is for you," she said, placing it carefully into his hands. "It is given to those who have proven themselves worthy of our honor, even if they are not Xylar." Elias looked at the token, feeling the weight of its meaning. It was more than a gift. It was a symbol of acceptance, of alliance, and of the potential for something greater. He nodded solemnly. "I will honor it," he promised. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the battlefield. The humans and Xylars gathered together, sharing stories, tending to the wounded, and preparing for the nights ahead. The AI threat was gone, for now, but both species knew that new dangers would come. Yet the battle had shown them something important. Strength alone was not enough. Understanding, respect, and trust could change the outcome of any fight. Elias and Xylothra stood together, watching the survivors work. They no longer spoke much, but the silence was comfortable. A bond had been forged, not through words or orders, but through actions, shared struggles, and mutual respect. "You know," Xylothra said quietly, "when you cleaned my armor, I did not know if you understood the weight of that gesture. Now I see. You understand, more than most humans ever could." Elias looked at her, the weight of the day and the battles etched into his face. "I did not know at first, but I learned, and I will keep learning. I will keep learning." A small breeze stirred, carrying the scent of smoke, dust, and something faintly metallic. It was the smell of battle, but also of life, continuing, despite destruction. The night promised challenges, but for the first time, humans and Xylars faced them not as strangers forced together, but as allies who trusted each other. Xylothra turned her gaze toward the horizon. "Perhaps humans are more than warriors. Perhaps you are capable of honor, of understanding, of hope." Elias nodded, feeling a rare warmth in the middle of a harsh world. "We have to be. For ourselves, and for the worlds we protect." As darkness fell, the two of them returned to the camp. Fires burned, casting flickering shadows over tents and makeshift shelters. Soldiers on both sides prepared for the night, knowing that the next day could bring more battles. But tonight, there was peace, however fragile. Tonight, humans and Xylars could rest in the knowledge that they had learned something invaluable. That even the smallest acts of respect could build bridges stronger than steel, and that trust earned through honor was a weapon more powerful than any sword. Elias watched Xylothra move among her people, her armor reflecting the firelight. He realized that what had begun with a simple act cleaning sacred armor had grown into something much larger. It had proven humanity's worth, not just as fighters, but as beings capable of understanding, empathy, and respect. It had changed the way the Xylars saw them, and perhaps the way the universe would see humans in the future. He felt a quiet pride, not in victory, but in the lesson learned. Humanity's strength was not only in resilience or courage, but in the ability to honor others, to act with understanding, and to build alliances from respect rather than fear. The night deepened, and the camp settled into silence. Stars twinkled above, mirrored faintly in the reflective plates of Xylar armor. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, humanity had shown its heart. And for the first time, Xylothra looked at the humans not as unpredictable allies, but as equals. Elias felt the weight of that understanding, knowing that battles could be won with weapons, but wars could be won with respect, trust, and the quiet strength of small but meaningful actions. And in that quiet, under the watchful eyes of stars and survivors alike, hope began to grow, not the hope of conquest, but the hope of unity, understanding, and the enduring power of honor.